Loose Women, the podcast, is brought to you by Mecca Bingo, home of bingo besties, where fun and friendship come together, just like best mates.
MeccaBingo.com is the home of legendary bingo, and I will never forget the first time I won and got to shout, bingo!
Yeah, we all love a win, and the Mecca Prize Promise brings 3 bingo games every day, and guess what? Everyone is a winner.
Players must be over 18, terms and conditions apply. Go to meccabingo.com for details, and please be gamble aware.
This episode of Loose Women, the podcast, includes adult themes, including discussions about mental health and growing up in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Coming up on Loose Women, the podcast. He used to cancel nights out. You know what I say? Chelsea didn't win when he was playing with them, and we would maybe have plans to go for dinner or drinks or something. He'd go, I'm not going.
Very, very down, like really dark for about a week. Mark was so good actually, because I couldn't speak. I actually couldn't even speak.
But I remember as a very young child having complete and utter panic that Dad hadn't arrived home.
And he goes, yeah, she's just so lovely and she's just so kind and she's so warm. So we could do a wife swap.
You know what? You see, everything you've just said to me now during our chat here, I think we may have been in some way separated. Our families, if we do a DNA thing,
Yeah.
I'm telling
I've just
you,
got a DNA kit come to my house.
I think
let's do it.
I'll give you some of my blood.
MeccaBingo.com, sponsors of Loose Women.
Hello and welcome to Loose Women, the podcast with me, Christine Lampard and Nadia Sawalha. This is my first one.
I know. I would say, so don't worry, you're okay with me. I'm a veteran.
I know. I'm in very safe hands.
I've done one actually with Judy.
Well, it's one more than me. But this feels so nice.
Yeah, it is. It's really lovely to just get like a bit more of chat, a bit more time.
Yes.
To actually get down to things.
But it feels a bit more intimate, which can also be dangerous.
I'm going to get to find out more about you.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you knew everything at this stage. No, there's lots more to know.
Yeah.
So, lots of things to talk about. The first thing I want to bring up is, I hear you've been talking about my husband.
Well, I think that's fair, as my husband's got a really big crush on you. But yes, I did talk about you.
What is this about?
Well, a viewer had sent in a question. Who would you choose out of all the other Loose Women husbands to be your husband? And I did have to say Frank.
Well, I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. A lot of that was around the diamonds. Which does distract me, but also he does smell lovely. So if I'm going to have a different husband, I want a nice smelling one.
I completely agree with that. And I actually feel very proud of him. He does have a very natural kind of nice aroma, and then he obviously has his aftershaves.
Well, I don't know about his natural.
Else.
I've not got
it's
right behind
nice.
his ear or anywhere
Oh,
else. I'm just thinking about when he wafts.
He wafts into a room.
When he wafts to the desk. But you know very well that Mark has a crush on you.
I love
Mark. Do you remember that day when we bumped into him? He couldn't speak. Afterwards, I berated him all the way. I said, that was so embarrassing. You were just standing there moving your mouth like a goldfish. He goes, was nothing coming out? I went, nothing. And then last night I was chatting and I was saying I was doing the podcast. I said, with who? And he went, with who? I said, well, your favourite Loose Women. And Maddie's ears went up, my eldest. And she, favourite Loose Women, she's always on. And I said, yeah, Christine. Daddy's got a massive crush on Christine. She's looking it up, You've got a crush on Christine?
How dare you, Dad?
And he goes, yeah, she's just so lovely and she's just so kind and she's so warm. So we could do a wife swap.
We could.
Why don't we? We'll have a week in each other's homes.
Is so lovely and brilliant, and I had the pleasure of meeting him properly the day when he came into the show. Do you remember? And then when I bumped into you and everything else, and then I watch you doing all of your lives on Instagram and everything else. And anytime I ever comment, I love the fact Mark's like, Christine's commented.
Christine's commenting.
It just makes me giggle, but he's so good, and I love you two together. Oh. No, but I do. I just love the fact that you can openly have an argument, then you move. It's all real life, but it's just the underlying thing is complete and utter love.
And
it's
actually,
brilliant.
when I think about it, he was not. And this is one of the reasons I'm really glad that we're doing the podcast together, because we know a lot about each other in our life now, but I don't know that much about you as a teen.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think back to being a teen, I would never have imagined I would be with somebody like Mark. But I've become fascinated by Ireland. I watched a really good drama recently with Maxine Peake, and I thought, I know someone I can ask more about this. What was it like as a teenager for you growing up in Ireland?
Yeah, it was, I mean, a very interesting place, and isn't it so bizarre to think that there was, technically a war zone, but
yeah,
weirdly, because it is your norm, you learn to live around the atrocities that were going on, because you still have to go to school and you still have to go to work, and normal life continues.
Did you see things then?
Well, I remember just an absolute sense of fear growing up, particularly when I was younger than even teen years, because my dad was a musician, and we've talked about this on Loose Women, the TV show, before, but I remember my dad was a musician, so he was out on the road all of the time, and it was at a point where people were going into various bars and clubs and just shooting around them. And there were many musicians had lost their lives in various atrocities over the years back home. And I remember having a terrible, what I didn't realise it was anxiety. There was no term for it then. It was it's what you felt in your gut. But I remember as a very young child having complete and utter panic that Dad hadn't arrived home. And of course, by the nature of what he was doing, he wasn't coming home to maybe 1 a.m, maybe 2 a.m. I would have had school the next day. I couldn't sleep until I heard him drive up outside the house.
So you'd be frightened that he could be hurt?
Frightened that he just wasn't coming home.
And what sort of age was that?
Oh, from 5, 6, 7-ish, probably the age of my daughter now. Yeah. And I just remember, and I remember Mum trying to make slight light of it, and I'm sure she was worried sick as well, but I remember Mum saying things, Christina, watch kettle never boils, because I'd just be like this, staring out the window.
And presumably your mum was like that about you.
Yeah, exactly, all of us. So I do remember that as a very young age, being very panicked about it. Like when we were, I think I was about 2, 3, so I don't really remember this, and my sister, and we were both in the bath, and I remember, our mum remembers very vividly, the door being knocked, and it was the army saying, get out of the house, because there was a bomb scare in the area. And Mum having to scoop 2 wet children out of a bath, wrapping us up as best she could, and having to get out of the house. So I remember all of those, just completely absolute, to think back now that it actually happened. It's almost crazy to try and explain it to anyone, because you can imagine now going down Oxford Street in London, and there being big barricade gates, and every single person walking down Oxford Street in London had to get searched and their bags searched before you were allowed onto the main shopping street. That's what we had in Belfast, and that was the norm.
Well, Belfast, the movie, really illustrated that so
very,
well.
Very much so. Like,
was that really like how it felt?
Completely. And in my hometown, at night time, they would shut big sort of bollards would come over and shut the road through the whole heart of the towns, because that was kind of always where the bombs would be. If something were to go off, there would be a bomb in the middle of a town, so they would shut the roads. So just things like that became our absolute norm. And the town I did grow up in, I was maybe 9 or 10, and my sister and I, we were all out playing, as you do, again, the innocence in amongst the disasters, and a bomb going off in my hometown of Newtownards, and we were about 1.5 miles outside of the town centre. And within it was like an earthquake. And then suddenly, seconds later, it was just smoke. And we knew what it was as children. You thought, oh my God, there's been a bomb. And then there was the chaos afterwards, and it ripped the whole heart of the town up. And it was just, again, absolutely shocking, awful things. And never in my wildest dreams did I think the Good Friday Agreement would have happened, that we would be in a place that we are now, albeit not perfect. Yeah. However, I'll take anything ahead of what happened back then. And one of my most memorable moments was I just started working at the BBC, and I was a floor manager, and it was the Oma bombing. We were all, it was a weekend, Saturday, and we were all watching the news, and suddenly, 2 people had died, and then the numbers went up and up, and you started to hear about the women, the children, people just doing their shopping in an afternoon. And I'll never forget that feeling of panic and just innocence as well. Innocence lost in amongst the chaos of a war, which sadly
Continues on and on across the world.
But it does become a fabric of who you
Well,
are.
I was going to say, that must do some serious building, good or bad, in one's character.
Yeah.
You know, do you, and also, what was that like when you moved to England? Because did people have even any understanding of that?
Not really. And I think an awful lot of people here don't know the history of what went on back
I'm only
home.
just really finding out the history. I find it fascinating.
I understand it, and I understand unless you kind of have lived it. It's very difficult because people have their own lives going on, so they're not going to be completely focused on what you're doing. And I kind of understand it, but I do remember being young and thinking, why can't anyone fix this? Can someone not come over here and help us?
In a minute, surely someone's
going to fix this. But that, you know, this has been going on for decades.
So did you always have a sense that you wanted to leave where you were? Was that...
Weirdly, no.
No.
And actually, weirdly now, I'd still go home.
Yeah.
You know, going home, I say
that.
home.
Yeah.
Like London's sort of home. But my home will always kind of be back there.
Yeah.
And it's where thankfully my parents are and all my old friends and my sister. And there's something about the second I land at Belfast City Airport, it's almost like my shoulders go down.
That's it.
And it feels...
People want to go home.
And it's beautiful. That's the thing. And I think you'll find this for people from Northern Ireland. For all of the awful things that have happened, there's a weird pride still of coming from there, because it's a beautiful place. Landscape wise, it's beautiful. The people are really special.
Well, you've not just survived, you've thrived. And
yeah,
there is a
a
real
bit of
different
that.
Thrivers.
And weirdly, out of all of that, there's a very unique sense of comedy. And this sounds a very bizarre thing to say.
Out of darkness comes
out
great
of
comedy.
dark, exactly.
Yeah.
And there were so many moments and so many things at home where it was a sense of humour, bizarrely, managed to get you through. And we all kind of united in this weird humour. And weirdly, with Kat Daly and I doing this morning, but her husband Patrick, he had a live TV show. It was called PK Tonight. It was one of my first shows as a runner. And we had been rehearsing during the day and a bomb had gone off. And I remember him coming on live and saying, this was the script before 8 o'clock tonight and we all know what's happened. And he threw the script up and he went, there is no script, but we're here and we're going to make this show happen and we're going to do as good a job we can to smile and laugh our way through this. That's not to take away from anything that's happened or any loss, but it was a weird survival thing.
Survive and thrive.
It was a survival moment, and I'll never forget that. That's those little pinnacle moments throughout your life where you go, God, yeah. And I think it's why, weirdly, my mum... I have a love of comedy now. I that's my thing. You know, people
got
watch
great
crime.
You're a thrower header.
I'm a thrower header. And you know, crime documentary, everyone loves it. I'm actually not that way inclined at all. My sister is, but I'm not. I like funny. I like to feel good in my free time when I'm watching something. And that comes from my mum, I think, because when we would be waiting for Dad to come back from at the weekends and me doing my panic thing, my mum would be standing ironing on a Saturday night and she'd have Billy Connolly on, or she'd have some really funny sort of great comic person, and Mum would be laughing. It would be her escapism. And I think that's how it started for me. I grew up going, I like that. That's funny.
You don't feel the anxiety.
No, it was like it was a funny white noise that took you away from the reality of news. And so weirdly,
I still
think
use that
that's...
now.
I do.
Funny white noise.
Yeah, and I think it's a really, really powerful
So I
tool.
suspect that there wasn't much room for you to be, because I know you've got a wild side. I suspect there wasn't much room to be wild in a place where there was danger.
Yeah.
Where you were very well behaved.
But strangely, I think I was well behaved. Like if I have my school friends here now, I'm just thinking of my two best school friends, Claire and Vicky. If they're watching this, which they will be, going, oh, she was such a teacher's pet. Of course she wasn't in trouble. But we had fun, and we, of course... Again, you lived around anything that was happening. That was the thing, because you still had a life and you were still a teenager. And, you know, I did have my friends who were really wild and we didn't have phones.
Why pointing at me?
Well, I don't know why I pointed at you. I naturally did that. But I kind of never had, we didn't have phones and all of the things we talk about now and parents tracking you and everything else. You know, Mum and Dad would have dropped you off. I'm going to pick you up at this time. But in that time, you were still allowed to be a teenager. So there was... I had actually looked back and I had a really, really happy life, a really happy childhood, all down to my parents and, you know, what is around you and school life and friends and everything. But we did have fun. We did. In spite of anything, we did. We wanted to live.
Yeah, that's it. Out of that, so in Ireland, what would have been? Well, let's not talk about other people. Who was on my wall was Donny Osmond.
Yes,
and I used to snog him. But my absolute dream man that I was going to marry. I mean, Joanna Woodward, Paul Newman's wife, was somebody that was just going to disappear and disintegrate because Paul Newman was going to be who I married.
You were going to be.
Did you have an idea of who?
Do you know, weirdly, and I think maybe again this was another escapism thing, because we used to just be obsessed with watching anything from America. It was just like a big deal to have an accent, yeah. And
David Cassidy.
I loved another David Hasselhoff. I love Knight Rider.
That's a bit of a problem.
Knight Rider. Yeah, it is. But Knight Rider, that kind of, yeah, it is. But all that kind of, even Tom Selleck, believe it or not.
Yes, I had a funny thing for him.
Yeah.
And the man from Hawaii Five-0, you might be a bit too young for that. Yeah. Jack Lord.
Oh, I don't remember him.
No.
I don't remember him.
Well, I'm much older than you. But so did you have an idea? I mean, you were a feminist, you're a career woman, but did you also have an idea of who you might, if you ever did marry?
Well, you see, I never thought about getting married. And what am I not? I'm trying to work out. My mum and dad have been married. They were married 7 years before me. So that's 53 years. My parents are married this year. So again, you know, gosh, thank God, came from, you know, very happy home, long marriage and everything else. So I had the foundation of, well, this is what it should be. This is how lovely it can look. Whereas my mum, weirdly, talking about the feminist thing, without knowing again that she probably was, she instilled in my sister and I from no age, girls, always have your own money. Always do your own thing. Make sure you look after yourselves. Have fun. Don't be having babies early. That was our other thing as well. Go out and like enjoy yourselves and always be strong on your own. And weirdly, that just stuck with me. And I went to an all-girls school. But it's funny because I
think when you have good parents like that and your parents are still together, because my mum and dad were like that as well. My mum and dad probably married 65 years ago, and it was the same with my mum and dad. Don't think about getting married, think about what makes your heart sing, go for that. And I used to say, well, I'm going to get married. If I get married, I'm going to get married 6 times, you know. I was such a blithering idiot, I really was. But then I come to, and I think both of us have got very solid marriages. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. I think if you've got it, you've got the freedom to not have it.
That's
almost,
exactly
and then
it.
you find it without really looking.
That's it.
Almost.
And a lot of people who haven't had it are scared to maybe get into it as well. There's all different sorts of reasons.
Focus so much on finding somebody that can fix this thing.
That's it. And they're sort of yearning for something they didn't have. But I always wanted to see the world. And again, I think it's not a small island, but it's a bit of an island mentality. And we never travelled. My parents, we never went anywhere. I didn't have a passport until I was 17 years old. Wow. We were not the family that went to Spain on holiday. We went on car trips and we drove, and it was brilliant. I know. But actually, at the time, honestly, we would go to the coast, and it was all very outdoorsy. But I remember watching, at the beginning still, it's Universal and it's got the globe.
Yeah.
That still gives me goosebumps.
Oh my God, that's so lovely.
Still to this day, that the music and the sort of the earth shifting round. And I remember as a kid going, I want to see all of it. Wow. I want to see all of it. Because we would, this tiny little dot, and then it would just pan out and you'd have the whole earth. And I was like, I want to go everywhere. Yeah. And I had that real desire to want to see places and meet people. People that immigrants are some of the finest people, because it takes courage and vision and dreams to want to go to another land where you're not going to know. When I think of my dad turning up in Sidcup, and he says, I was sat on the edge of a bed and somebody gave me a meat and 2 veg. I thought, so alien from your life, and you did this thing, and it would have been like, the thought of even just coming to England would have been a massive thing. Oh, it was. Especially with the Troubles and everything. No, absolutely. But when you think of Irish people, no matter where I go now in the world, I will always bump into someone from home. I might know them, but they'll always be, no matter where you go, from this tiny place no matter where they've had an influence everywhere. So maybe we all had that desire to go and see the world, but a lot of them go back, which is the really interesting thing. A lot of people have a yearning to sort of go home eventually.
Yeah, to have that adventure and then return to where is safe, isn't it? And where is familiar, that homing instinct we all have.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well, we're going to take a break now. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back. I'm enjoying this.
We're having a good time.
This is lovely.
So, like, if you're having a good time, could you please follow, subscribe, and a little rating would be nice as well, wouldn't it? Because that gives us a warm glow. And then you will never miss an episode because you will get a little ding, a little reminder.
That's nice.
So I want us, because I think we connect on lots of things, but I do think we connect on health anxiety.
Yeah.
We've never really got into our health anxiety.
Yeah. It's definitely...
It's there are so many people, I think, that identify with this, and it's really hard to work out where it started, because you look back as a child, think, I never used to worry about my health, but did I? Was there anything? I think for me it comes from when I had, as soon as I got pregnant and I started thinking about everything I was eating. Before that, but to be quite honest, I was drinking and smoking and stuffing rubbish food. And then I also feel, for me, I sometimes think we have too much awareness. Yeah. It's really great to have awareness about so many, conditions that we can have and early symptoms and all that. But I sometimes think there's too much. So I'm like over aware, and I don't know how to be less aware. Do you feel the same?
Well, I weirdly felt that because exactly like you, I think I definitely was a bit aware of healthy things, and I could go from 0 to 100 in my stress levels about something really quickly. But
from
definitely, I would say maybe just not young, actually. Yeah, maybe just a little before kids, but maybe that was because I was thinking about maybe having kids. Yes. It was maybe a little bit of that. Yeah, it was like sort of 20s, early 30s. Definitely not. It was just I'm going to have as much fun as I can. And
never thought about my liver when I was downing pints.
Of course not. And then weirdly, though, when I got pregnant with my little girl, that's when obviously it all started, and the panic and can't eat that, and I was changed my shampoo, anything I put on my skin and makeup. I was really, really conscious of everything. And then of course the second that you look on your phone, because I'm convinced everything listens, and then suddenly it would all come up constantly about things to worry about. And weirdly then when I got pregnant with my little boy, I actually was about 10, 12 weeks before I even knew I was pregnant. And as much as I was stressed about that, on the flip side, it was probably a blessing. Yeah, because I got
3 months less of panic.
Exactly, and I got to almost a milestone before I even knew he was there, and I made a conscious effort to not read anything. I thought, I've done it once. I'm not stupid. I've got a bit of common sense. I actually do know what to do this time, and I am not taking on more information.
That's pretty amazing to go from that level of anxiety to that.
But that was...
Did you force yourself?
I had to really force myself. And also because I had a toddler, there's a good distraction, and I kind of thought, I'm doing my best here. I'm going to eat well and all of that, do everything a doctor tells me to do. And I was much more relaxed second time round for that very reason. But then since having children... It's gone off the scale. So I worry about myself. The stress about those two. Oh my goodness! Like the second they get a bit of a cold, I'm like, but is it a cold? Yeah. Is that the beginning of something else
this year?
Yeah, it's all of that. Worry about Frank, parents, everybody. So it's not just health anxiety about me. It's maybe even more so about everyone else.
I think I wonder, and if I'm being brutally honest with myself, because I am like that, I'll start to say something and my kids and my husband will go, oh God, what is it now? My sister walks in and immediately tells 5 terrifying stories of diseases, syndromes, poisonings of like people she knows in the area that's something. I mean, it's a bit of a running joke in our house, but on a more serious note, because you've just made me think with that more about other people, it's like, am I actually projecting to actually rid myself of some of the anxiety myself?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
no, of course,
I wonder if it's without realising it's just anxiety that I've got about, their health and mine. And if I'm focusing on, like, I get them to the doctor, I get them to the dentist, I get them to, but I don't do it for myself.
Yeah. I know exactly that. Yeah, that's an interesting twist because it's all wrapped up under the one thing.
Yeah.
There's health anxiety, but it's been divvied out slightly differently.
Does anyone in your family notice it and pull you up on it? Or do you think it's a shift in all of us?
I think it maybe is a bit of a shift. My sister's much better than I am, and I would
lucky
say,
you. Do you want to swap sisters? My sister,
Two for one.
God.
Because it can be a lot to take on, can't it? Because Frank, actually, anytime I would say to him, oh gosh, because I know I've a tear in my disc, which I know I'm not imagining I actually have. I know when it happened, it was picking Freddie out of the bath. Oh, no. Anyway, it's fine, but occasionally I'll go, oh God, I can feel that today. And he'll go, Frank will go, okay, well, Whereas if it was him, I'm never going to walk again. Yeah. I'm never going to walk again. So there's a strange,
on earth that isn't like that. I genuinely want to know
I'd like to know that too. Because definitely the second he gets a cough, it's like, can't leave bed. I mean, even when COVID hit at the time and he brought it into our house. He brought it into our house. It was from Wembley. Like 60,000 other people got it at the same time.
There's honestly so many similarities between the Irish and the Arabs that I find out more and more. And that is so my family. Somebody brought a cold. And then we'll seriously be sitting around the table charting back to who it was that brought the cold.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
No, it's your fault. It's your fault. Which it was.
He brought it in.
I was being very careful. And he brought it. And he was like, and actually, touch wood, my goodness me, we were okay. Yeah. But I had to continue to do everything.
Yes.
That was the thing. There was still children needing fed. Yes. Dog needing fed and everything. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I do. I have to try and contain myself. And if I'm busy, I find I'm better. But if I'm at home, I find myself with not even more time, but just there's the space to think too much.
Well, that's very interesting because then we exacerbate the anxiety because we have to keep doing something to not feel it.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to do this thing where I sit with my feelings.
I haven't got there yet.
Neither have I. I said try.
How do you do when you mean sit?
Well,
what do you do?
You're supposed to know the difference between, is this something I need to distract from because I'm powerless over this, and it's like you're over worrying about something you've definitely got to do the next day and you've just got to distract until, or is it something like our anxiety about our health isn't about our health, it's about other stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to try and sit with those feelings and work out what they might be rather than distracting from them. Yeah. But when I sit with my feelings, I get so fed up. And then even I suddenly think, I'll clean out the cupboard, which isn't my natural habitat at all. But because I'm not very good at sitting with my feelings, I will distract all the time rather than feel them. Because sometimes when you just sit with them and feel them, you can work them out and then you're rid of them a bit,
Is that so interesting, though, considering... Like, I see you as you are the ultimate people person. Like you are the one I feel will absorb other people's feelings because you just want to help
from my own. That's what a rescuer is. That's what a codependent is, and that's what I am. I rescue other people, so I'm never really sitting with my feelings. But then is it
because you're scared of something that you're going to feel about yourself? I think
just inherently scared, like you say, like a darkness is in me from a child that I don't know what it is, so I've always been rushed. I mean, I am fascinated by the human condition. As an actress, to be an actor, you want to be, to be a presenter, to be able to want to talk. I always want to know other people's stories. So, that's my hobby, that's my interest, that's my everything is other people's stories. So where that originally comes from, I don't want to not be like that, but where that probably originally comes from is distracting from what it is. So
it's interesting to think, is that why you became an actress as well? Because then to put on a mask and absolutely take on another role, it's like the perfect hiding place for it.
Being an actor is about becoming. It's not about lying, it's about telling the truth. So you can take somebody else's truth and be it. And then escape.
But it's still not you.
Yeah.
You say,
that's
I think so interesting.
My homeopath said to me years ago, the greatest performance of your life, Nadia, is you. Because there is something in you that you don't you don't want to get to. And it's anxiety. That's what it is. It's a kind of anxiety, you know.
Yeah.
But I actually fuel myself quite well with it. It's my ADHD, probably, because the ADHD always made me feel like I was a bit like, what's going on? But as I get older, I find that I accept these quirks of I'm not going to be great at sitting with my feelings. Yeah, I do like to distract. Yeah, I am a codependent. I tried not to be a codependent. It was really boring. I hated it. I didn't like it. So I went back to being one.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, I'm very lucky that I have strong mental health. You know, marrying somebody that's had the struggles of poor mental health has made me so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful.
Well, I think I often think of that too. Obviously, everyone can have a day where you're maybe not feeling as strong, but certainly when you talk about the health anxiety, if you were struggling with mental health as well as all these other anxieties, that's a very difficult
to suffer from
place
real
to be.
depression. I mean, just before Christmas last year, or was it just after? I got a bit ill, and then I got very, very down, like really dark for about a week. Mark was so good actually, because I couldn't speak. I actually couldn't even speak. I couldn't speak to my kids. I just literally had to lie. I think it was just the whole year collapsed in on me a bit. And my God, it gave me another level of understanding of bad mental health. You know, when people say, don't say to somebody that's depressed, well, if you just cheer up, well, if you're just being grateful, if you just, I was like, no, you can't. I mean, it was like 5 days and then it was gone. But I got a teeny taste of it, and it is so hard.
Yeah.
I would never want to go back to that. So I'm very, very grateful for good mental health.
But you've always been so, open and candid about talking about Mark and your entire family actually, and how. But you're very good at being aware of mental health and how it affects you, and but lots of people sort of aren't until they have to. That's the thing. And I
was oblivious.
Yeah,
I would say things like, "Oh, just cheer up; it might never happen." You know,
exactly.
I didn't understand it, but I grew up in an atmosphere of that. Where my father's culture, there's a lot of shame with bad mental health.
Yeah,
there's shame in that. There was still a very old-fashioned, well, also that generation, not just culturally. I mean, my mum's the same. They're not getting navel gazing again. Everything is navel gazing. If you want to look inside and question everything. War baby, you know, she was out in the shelters and all of that. She no time for this. So I grew up a bit like that, and then meeting Mark and falling in love with him, and then the terribly difficult point of discovering that he wasn't just a heavy drinker, he was an alcoholic, and then rehab, and then you go into rehab and they say, let's take everything away so we can find out what you're self-prescribing for, and then the realisation of the bipolar and all of that. So it wasn't like, oh wow, we were just these people that are just so great about mental health. It's been a long every week we are learning something new about it. And still learning that still many people will judge. So it is still incredibly brave to talk with them. For my husband to talk about it the way he does, it's still brave because
brilliant at it too. And he does it so eloquently though, and he does it with such heart, and he is brilliant. But also alongside that, it's you finding your way and your place amongst his story, because then his story has become
isn't it?
But
it is.
As you say, like every marriage will have that something, but you have to have a strength as well, and again, you won't every day, but you want to be there for him, and because of the person that you are, you probably put pressure on yourself to be the perfect wife.
Well, I think I put pressure on to be aware the difference, and anybody that lives with anybody that has struggles with their mental health will identify with this. It's like when you go in, are you just being a son of a gun, or is this actually your mental health at this? And that's a lot of the work of living with somebody with a mental health. Not that he would fake it and say, "Oh, I'm depressed," when he wasn't, but like, because you do a lot of that silent work. Because the worst thing is to keep asking somebody, "Is this a day when you're having a bipolar low, or is this so that can take up a lot of space in you. But I think any relationship, there is something where space is taken from you for the other person, isn't it?
Of
you know, like my
course.
dad's a terrible hypochondriac, terrible. My mum has to listen to his illnesses morning, noon and night. You know, it's exhausting. But she makes space for it. You know, he makes space for it. Mark's convinced he can do DIY, so I make space for it. When people talk about compromise, it's not just a word you just throw in the air, it's real.
I know. But even with our life, and it's completely different, and it's a job for space in terms of a job. But you know, Frank could get a job anywhere tomorrow in the world, technically.
Yeah.
So you have to make space for his passion. And of course now, you know, life's different, and we've got 2 young children and the dog and everything else. So you can't just pack your bags up and go like we could have done.
You spent a long time away.
But we've been sort of all over. Well, I remember when we were in New York for 2 years.
Yeah,
he
but
was
you
over
love that.
there,
You can't
and I
include
did.
that as a bad
No, I
moment.
can't.
You
I
weren't
can't
making
at all.
space.
Don't
That
get me
was
wrong.
perfect, and we were jealous.
No. That was a fantastic experience, and it was pre-children for me. So you know you were allowed to have fun with that.
But you've had long times apart.
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. And he, you know, at the minute he's up in Coventry, and you know, which he's really loving, and it's fine. You're still in the country, so I still think at least you can get in the car. That was always my thing. Even if you're up in Newcastle, at least I can get in the car and I'll drive. So
And you
I
still
never
have
complain.
a relationship that's alive. I remember my homeopath. Sorry, I keep saying homeopath. People think, who's this weirdo? But I've got a homeopath. Got to help it. But she always says, you know, like, because we'd speak very honestly with your homeopath. It's like your doctor. You can tell them anything. And I say, oh God, he's driving me mad. And he might be saying to her, oh God, she's driving me mad. And she always says, but your relationship is still alive, and she'll do this thing. And I go, well, yeah. What do you mean? She goes, well, some people you're with them, and they might appear to be happy, but it's like dead. There's something
flatlined.
And I always think of that when I see you, and when I see you talk about Frank, or when you're together, yours is still tick, 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 tick. So you do actually want to be together, because quite a lot of people like it when their husband goes away. For
Of course. Oh no, I understand that. But
you,
no,
but
we
you
do.
have really seen that you
but we're
love
still
to be with him.
Absolute best mates. Like he'll be the first person I'll pick the phone up to sort anything out with. Yeah. And we still, the biggest thing for me, going back to my love of comedy, is he makes me laugh. And that is such a powerful thing to me. I have to be able to have a giggle.
Do you make him laugh?
I think we do. I think I do. Yeah, we do. We have just proper laughs. We have the same points of view on things. We don't kind of argue over parenting or how things run in the house. We just come off. We sort of sing off the same page, and that sort of makes everything flow. Of course, there's loads of extra things that you have to take into consideration, but the basis is there's love. We've got each other's backs, and we're supportive. And if he suggests that some job's happening and he wants to do it, we'll make it work. And so you just do your best. And it's what a lovely problem to have. So that's not a complaint in any shape or form. But like when you talk about the mental health, and I remember often with when he was playing maybe more, and the pressures of, you know, doing a job where there's millions of people watching you. Say you were, thankfully didn't happen that often, but say you didn't get a penalty, or you were playing for England, particularly when the world spotlight's on you. And I know, and I think it was even pre him and I getting together, there were a couple of moments obviously where it didn't go according to plan when you're playing for your country. And you've got the entire country
I always think
pointing at you afterwards going,
what's it like?
I mean, those sorts of things. And it's interesting recently with Gareth Southgate talking about, and you know, groups of men coming together and being supportive of one another and everything else. And it really resonated with me because Frank had been through the football thing and the need for feeling like you've got a team, a tribe, a group of people around you that will support you when you're kind of having moments where it's everything, when you're having moments of feeling, oh, I should be strong, but I'm just not feeling it today. But how do I really tell everybody? Because they'll never understand. And so that would be something I would always have been very aware of with him. And he was always very good, but there was many a Saturday say they
and
lost.
he's living the dream. That's the thing. Everyone will go, well, you're living the dream.
That's
you've
it.
got
So how can you complain?
So how can you ever
how can
be
you
sad?
moan?
That's an enormous pressure, isn't it? And then an enormous pressure if you love somebody that other people are seeing in that way.
That's true.
He's just a human being.
Like he used to cancel nights out. You know, I say Chelsea didn't win when he was playing with them, and we would maybe have plans to go for dinner or drinks or something. He'd go, I'm not going. I just don't want to go. I don't want to go. And there'd be anger and just didn't want to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
And it was like he needed to kind of decompress, and then he was ready to go again Monday morning. But there were loads of those moments where he thought, no. And he'd be so angry with himself. Something didn't go according to plan.
How do you deal with that then? Just step back.
I remember in the early days, because I didn't know football and those, I sort of was like,
So is it really this serious? You began, I mean, I know you're a bit upset, but is it
yeah,
this
but
serious?
like, I really haven't got a new outfit. I wanted to go out. I was a bit like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the more I went, obviously, then I was like, oh God,
God,
yeah,
this is serious stuff.
I really do get this now. And I was almost saying, no, we're not going out ahead of him, because I got so wrapped up in it really, really quickly. So I do get it, and I can see how it can happen very quickly for people too. That's my point, and having someone that supports you, you're very lucky. Yeah. You're just lucky to get that.
Aren't our fellas lucky?
Yes, they are.
We're pretty fantastic, Frank and Mark.
Well, yes,
that?
I know. I remind him though, so don't worry about it. I'll remind Mark for you as well. I'll drop him a little line. He'll listen to me, won't he?
He will.
Oh my goodness,
lovely.
right. We've talked about the boys enough. Shall we take a break now? Is that
Come
what
on
we'll
then.
do? Yeah,
Let's have a
we'll take a
little
little
break.
break. We'll see you after this. Welcome back. Right, time now for our loose ends. It could be anything. No, this is the part of the show where we get to ask each other a question that we've kind of always wanted to ask, and we maybe haven't got round to asking. Okay, and we've no idea what the other one is going to ask here either. So I think you're going to go first. Yeah? Right. Go on. Ask me.
Okay.
Ask me anything.
This is something I like to ask a lot of women, actually, because I don't think we give ourselves time to think about this. And I'm glad you're not asking me this question, because I wouldn't have an answer. But setting aside world peace, your children's health and future, your family's security, taking no one else into consideration, what's one of your desires? It doesn't have to be huge. It could be tiny. It could be work related. It could be just personal. It could be just anything. Just a desire without taking anyone else into consideration.
Without taking anyone else, because everything. That's the problem.
This is where it goes tits up.
Everything I would want
Goes
have
via
everybody
someone else.
else.
Thank you. Perfect answer. You don't even have to give me an answer.
Because I was literally just thinking, well, my perfect thing would be to have in my entire family and all your people like in a really incredible holiday or something. But I'm thinking, well, that wouldn't work because my dad wouldn't do that.
So it's a desire just for you. Just for you.
I have a friend who does self-care Mondays, right? Now, she hasn't got children and she has a lovely life and clearly makes time for herself. And I'm always, and she says it now just to wind me up. She goes, I've just had a self-care Monday, which involved a sleep in. She goes, gets her eyebrows done. Maybe gets her hair done. Silly things.
Without thinking answering to anyone.
And just not talking, actually, weirdly. And I sometimes think, oh, that'd be quite nice. But then I'd be in it and I go, I miss everybody.
No, but it could be just for a short time. It's
short
like
time.
Last weekend.
Go to the toilet on my own, that'd be nice.
Oh yeah, you're still at that stage.
I'm at that stage. Having a moment to go to the toilet without the door opening, without a dog and two youngsters standing looking at you, and sometimes Frank, that would be quite nice.
Or a whole bath without being called.
Oh, I've no idea what that is.
There you go. So maybe that's a desire.
Maybe something like that. Yeah. And
yeah.
did you think I was going to say something big or fancy there?
No,
because it's interesting, isn't it?
I just wanted you to have something because so many people get stumped when you take everybody else out of the equation.
That's so
and I
true.
just think it's quite an interesting introspection for women to do.
Well, isn't it strange? Because my question actually is kind of similar.
Oh,
Well, sort of similar, because my question to you, and I say this to anyone who ever asks me, what's Nadia like? And I'll always say, Nadia is the most caring, loyal, loving woman you'll ever meet. I swear I do. And I actually wanted to say to you how you are willing to give so much to everyone around you, like whether it's your family or the loose women, all of us. Like, you would be the first person I think anyone would need.
making me cry.
It's so true, though. If anyone
that's my
wanted
ambition.
advice or, going out for a fun night, like, you're the one that's there for all of those markers.
Oh, that's so lovely.
I wanted to say to you, how do you, or can you, or are you willing to take yourself out of all of those people and have time for yourself.
You asked the same
So basically asked you the same question.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because when you couldn't find an answer and then you went to self-care, I thought, oh, that's what I want. Because weekend before last, I had a Saturday morning where I wasn't working and the sun was shining and I went out and I repotted my plants, right? And I didn't have like a political podcast in my ear, and I didn't have a crime, and I didn't have a thing, and I didn't have a conversation I was trying to have with somebody. I just had the birds, the air, my plants. And I was like, I could do this forever.
Yeah.
It was the simplicity of it was just breathtaking. And but then I started having a go at myself. I said, right, don't be so silly. Because what I started doing is I started advising myself. I go, you can do this.
Yeah.
Why don't you do this more?
Exactly, as opposed to stopping completely and just going, oh, look, the little robins.
Well, we're back to the beginning of sitting with your feelings. Because I look at the robin and then I'll start thinking about the pollution. Then when I think about the pollution, I start feeling bad that I didn't put more spider plants in my children's room when they were little to clear the pollution. So, and then we go,
and then you go off.
And then we're off.
You see, that is so. As a little aside with the garden, because I love my little garden as well. All my daffodils are out. I feed my birds every day and everything else. And we came back at the weekend. Now the children are into it, and they planted little bits with me and stuff. We came back to the house on Sunday. Pigeon massacre.
Oh no!
I have never seen anything like it in my garden. Right, parts of pigeon, blood, feathers, everything, right?
Foxes.
Really awful. So I'm thinking it's got to be a fox, because there is a fox come and goes. 20 minutes later, my little girl, I said, maybe it was an eagle. And I went, yeah, I know, an eagle. It might have been. And I look like this massive hawk thing in our garden, a tiny little garden off the Fulham Road in Chelsea. This massive bird had clawed down, had picked up the remains of this pigeon, was just eating it in my back garden. And I opened the door, it flew off, dropped the remain in bed of this pigeon. And I thought, and my children are witnessing this going, Mommy! Screaming.
It's a massacre.
Yes, it was a massacre. And then the next morning, it flew back in, it picked up the remnants of what it had dropped, and I haven't seen it since. So it had obviously swept down in the midst of my idyllic little daffodil-filled, robin-loving garden, slaughtered a poor pigeon. I haven't gotten over it.
I think we've just got to go back to never considering ourselves and just think
Well, there
about
you
this.
go.
It's all gone horribly wrong.
But do you know what? You see, everything you've just said to me now during our chat here, I think we may have been in some way separate our families if we do a DNA thing. Because my natural hair, as you well know, is that.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
I've just got a DNA kit come to my house.
I think.
Let's do it.
I'll give you some of my blood and we can just check it all out. I'm telling you, there's something going on.
Too much similar.
There's too much. Yeah. Really? Anyway, look, that's a nice thing. I'm going to take that as a big positive. Well, that is almost it for us. We hope you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
We've had
It's
too
been
good a time,
lovely.
haven't we?
We really have. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget that this Friday, 2 more of your favourite loose women, apart from these 2 favourite loose women, will be here answering your questions and juicy dilemmas.
Yeah, you can ask absolutely anything you want. Get your questions in to loose.women at ITV.com. Thank you so much. Lovely to have your company. Stay loose.